it's AJ, and it is Something to Do Saturday, and hopefully you're getting ready for Mother's Day and that you haven't forgotten. But if you've forgotten, it's not too late, because I'm going to help you whip up a really cool thing for breakfast tomorrow. You can surprise her. And this is so easy that the kids can help and still make it an edible breakfast, which is sometimes a sketchy area when the kids help, right? So I have gone old school for today. I'm actually using a cookbook that was my mom's, and there's a really good recipe for Strata in here. I've used it before, but we're going to talk about it again because it's such an amazing recipe, because it's whatever you got in the fridge will work. As long as you got some eggs and milk, we can make breakfast. And the really cool part about it is that you can make it ahead. So you can actually make it today and put it in the oven tomorrow morning and go, ta-da, we made breakfast. And if you forgot Mother's Day, check out last week's video, because I can help you out there too. We've got some good little last minute gifts that Mom will really like. So we are going to whip up some Strata. So you're going to need some eggs, some milk, and I want you to clean out the refrigerator, because you can put whatever in Strata, and that's the amazing part about it, is not only is it quick, it's easy, it's make ahead, and it's economical, or as we say in my house, cheap. So go get your eggs and milk and clean out the refrigerator, and we'll get started. And so I am ready to get started. Again, I really like this recipe because it's wonderful to get rid of leftovers. You can use it anytime. If it's right after a holiday, you can always pick up some ham. Really cheap ham is an excellent one to put in here. So if you're looking for a recipe after a holiday, like using up that Christmas or that Easter ham, or you can put turkey in it too. It works really well. If you got some eggs that are ready to expire, or some milk, that's another good way to get it used up, because this does make a really good dinner dish as well. It doesn't necessarily, it's just not for breakfast anymore. So the first thing you're going to use is some stale bread, right? Oh great, we're not throwing out bread either. I'm going to use slices. You don't have to use slices. If you have some French or Italian bread, you can go ahead and tear that up into cubes, whatever works for you. If you have bread that's not stale yet, go ahead and stick it in the oven and dry it out. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to stale your bread, squirt it with a little butter spray, or brush it with a little butter, and throw some garlic or some onion powder on there, because as long as you're going to put it in the oven and toast it up, you might as well make it tasty, right? So you're just going to grab a nice 9x13 rectangular pan, maybe just a little, if you got one a little bit bigger, a little smaller, that'll work. And the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to, after we grease it, of course, spray it, we're just going to put our bread right in the pan, and you can use the ends and all. If you want to cut the crust off your bread, that's fine, but why would you? That's just wasteful. And you know I don't like waste. No waste, no waste. And we're just going to put our bread right in the bottom of our pan. We're just going to cover the bottom of the pan like so. So there you go. And then the next thing that we're going to put on, this is because the basic recipe that I have from my mom's old school good housekeeping is just that it's a cheese Strata. And you could do cheese. If you want to do just cheese, that's fine. Hey man, it's your Strata, your family, give them what they want, right? Sliced cheese works really fabulous on this. Makes it a really tasty dish, and you can certainly do that. That's quick and easy. And if you're doing this with the kids, that's a nice job for the little ones. Open up the cheese, they can do that. They can even lay it on the bread really nicely. I actually somewhere, oh it's sitting over there still, I have some garlic cheese that I have cut up, because you know I like garlic. We got some cheese that I was kind of underwhelmed with, and I know it's going to sit in the fridge and just sit there, so I'm going to take those little slices of cheese and break them up over top. We're going to throw in our ham. I have some leftover ham, some pepper tops, because you know I like to save my pepper tops. You've watched the video before and I've sliced peppers. Save the tops, dice them up. Look at all that. They didn't get wasted. Don't throw your tops away. I'm going to put some onion in mine. I have some diced onion here. And again, whatever's in your refrigerator. If you have some sausage in there, maybe some leftover Italian sausage, I've done that before. Whatever vegetables. If you like mushrooms, I'm allergic to mushrooms, but if you like mushrooms, those are tasty in here. Tomatoes are another one. I will tell you though, if you put tomatoes in your Strata, either leave them sitting out overnight, like on a plate or something where they can kind of dry out a little bit, or back off your milk just a tad bit, like take about a tablespoon or 2 out of your total milk. I can't remember right off the top of my head. It's about 2 cups of milk, I think. Back out about 2 tablespoons, because if you're using fresh tomatoes, they tend to be juicy or wet. It'll add liquid to it. So just back that milk out just a little bit, about a tablespoon or 2 if you're going to put tomatoes in there. You can always throw a little bit of bacon in here. You know, I like that bacon in a bag. That's always great. So if you were actually going to go to the store and pick up some ingredients to make this, because you had absolutely nothing to make it with, this is a quick and easy, boom, throw it in there, done. But we'll be using ham today. We're going to do almost like a Western omelet type of thing. I've got my peppers, my onions, my ham, my garlic cheese, and I'm also going to throw in a little bit of cheddar cheese just for some extra flavor, and of course mozzarella cheese. I always like to use mozzarella cheese anytime that I'm making a cheese dish. Even if you want cheddar or whatever you're going to use for flavor, I think mozzarella is one of the best go-to cheeses as far as keeping things creamy and melty. One of the other ones that you can use, I'm a big fan of this, hold that thought, boom, here we go, is, I get this at Aldi's. It's the imitation Velveeta. Why? It's just as good, but it's, you know, half as much. This stuff is really good for melting. In fact, that's what they call it. They call it right here, they call it cheese melt, because it ends up being creamy, very melty, and that's wonderful. I like the flavor of cheddar, but you know, it's not a creamy, it's not a melty cheese. So it's fine to use cheddar, but I highly recommend, if you want something creamy, yummy, and delicious, throw a little mozzarella or get yourself a little cheese melt. If you're using American singles, you know, the stuff in a wrapper, that's good too, because that's also designed to melt, as long as you don't get the really generic stuff, because that's a lot of oil and sometimes that doesn't melt as well. So I've got my toasted bread in here. I'm going to run over there and grab my garlic cheese and garlic cheese, and I'm just going to kind of tear these up a little more. I could have probably taken the block that we had and shredded it, but I was kind of lazy. So I'm just going to break this up and lay this over top of my bread so that it kind of covers it. The other thing that I really like about this, and you can do this if you want to, sometimes it makes serving a little better, is actually cut the pieces of bread before you put them in there. I didn't do that, and maybe I'll regret it, maybe I won't, I don't know. It just kind of makes it easier when you go to serve it. So I've just kind of broken up my little cheese slices, and oh, look at that, there's an extra piece left over. I might actually have to eat that now because I got some chintzy spots over here, so I'm going to go back and put that over there. Oh, there's a tiny piece. Nope, can't. All right, there, down we go. So I put my cheese on there. I'm going to go ahead and take some of my onion and just kind of sprinkle that along. And what's really cool about this recipe is, if you wanted to, if you have you know, some picky eaters in your household, or you got folks that just can't agree, oh, I like onion, I don't like onion, or I want bacon, no, I want ham. You can actually divide this right in its own pan, and it kind of stays that way. The middle may be marginal, but if you do, you know, like a half bacon, half sausage, and somebody sticks to one end as opposed to the other, you're in good shape. So if somebody didn't like onions or didn't like peppers, you could keep that to one end or the other, and that works kind of nice. It's still a one dish recipe, but it kind of, you know, does its best to make everybody happy, if that's possible when, you know, it comes to families and eating. So I've sprinkled my onion on there, and now I'm going to put my pepper tops on here, my bell peppers. And like I said, just feel free to go through and clean out the refrigerator and find whatever it is that is, you know, getting ready to meet the garbage can. Get it before it spoils, because no waste, no waste. We hate to waste, right? Don't waste food, because then you waste money, and we don't want to waste money. So I've thrown my pepper on here. That smells yummy. I've got some pepper on here. So now I'm going to throw my ham, and I probably could have cubed this a little bit smaller, and maybe I need to do that. Maybe I'll just peel it up here a little bit. It's already been cooked, so. And the other thing that's really nice that I like about this casserole is that with these slices of bread, if you serve it this way, it'll, you know, when you go to cut it up, it'll be kind of already there, and you can guide along to it. You know that everybody's going to get a delicious bite of food because you have the guidelines of where you laid it. It'll shift a little when you pour the egg mixture over top of it, but for the most part, it'll stay right where it's at. So everybody that's eating this gets a delicious bite of whatever filling you're putting into your strata. And what's really cool about this is that, you know, you can use whatever kind of meats or cheeses or vegetables you want to really kind of mix it up. So if you were serving this for dinner, you know, you could literally eat this, you know, once a week and not eat the same thing. It wouldn't be like eating leftovers. It's a very versatile meal, and that's why I really like it. It's because it's all of the things it needs to be. It's simple, it's easy, it's economical, and you can do it ahead, which means it saves time. And there's not a lot to it, so it's minimal cleanup too, because that's always a factor with me is how much mess is something going to make. It could be the most delicious, most economical thing in the world, but if I got a big thing to clean up, it just became unappealing. Okay, so I've got my ham there. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of mozzarella cheese on here. And one of the reasons that I'm doing that is because I'm kind of treating this almost like a pizza. Do you know when you make pizza that after you put your sauce on your crust, you should put a little bit of cheese, because that's your base cheese. That's what helps everything kind of stick together. And that's really the other reason that I like to use mozzarella. In addition to its creaminess, it works as a nice glue. So by sprinkling a little bit of this mozzarella cheese on each one of my bread squares, it's gonna help glue the other bread square to the top of that once it bakes. So that, again, everything will kind of stay right where we put it. So I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of mozzarella cheese over top of each one of my squares. Okay, and then at this point, if you wanted to, you could season it a little bit. You could season it a little bit again, either with some pepper or some garlic powder or some onion powder. Normally I would put some garlic in here, but because I have garlic cheese and I'm actually serving this to somebody other than my family, I am not going to put extra garlic on there. Mark the calendar for that, right? That I didn't use extra garlic. So I may sprinkle a little pepper on here. I don't know. Maybe I'll save that for the end. So I'm going to go ahead then. I think I'm going to leave it alone because, again, I'm serving this to other people. And I'm just going to now take my other slice of bread and put it right over top. And I'm going to give it just a little bit of a mush. I like to just mush it down there so that it kind of sticks really nicely. Okay, I'm just going to give it a little pat. Okay. There we go. So now I have almost like these little stuffed sandwiches. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to mix our eggs and our milk together, and we can put a little seasoning in that if you want to. And once we mix those two things together, we'll pour it over top of our bread. So I'm going to crack open some eggs and mix up our milk. So the recipe calls for 4 eggs, but I've got some eggs that are going to go bad here in the next few days, and I've got quite a few eggs in the refrigerator, so I want to get these used up. So I'm actually going to use a couple extra eggs, and there's really no harm in that. It'll be just a little bit thicker, and that's okay. Oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. And I always like to crack my eggs in a measuring cup. That way, if you do get a shell or something's not right with your egg, you don't ruin whatever else you already have in the bowl. Did you know that you can tell a good egg from a bad egg by simply putting it in a bowl of cold water? As Willy Wonka would say, you don't need an educated egg detector to determine that. If you fill a bowl with cold water and put an egg in it, if it sinks or lays on its side, it is a good egg. If it floats to the top, it is a bad egg and you should discard it. So, you know, if you have some eggs and maybe you took them out of the carton, or you're not sure whether or not they're good, you can simply put them in a bowl of cold water and you will know. So next we're going to add our milk to the mixture. And it calls for 2, I gotta look because I don't remember. As Edison would say, a good mind doesn't store information, it knows where to find it. And you know where to find it, right? At the library. So we are using 2.5 cups of milk. The other really cool thing about this is that you can use evaporated milk and just add a little bit of extra water to it. Or you could use cream and then you get this really fabulous and rich casserole there. So again, there's some versatility there. If you don't have milk on hand, you can go ahead and use cream or evaporated milk. So now we're just going to whisk this around until we get those eggs mixed up with our milk. And you can do this with a hand mixer, you can put it in your stand mixer. If you've got a large capacity blender, you can put it in the blender, however you want to do it. I'm just going to whisk it by hand because then all I have to do is throw the whisk in the dishwasher and have a lot to clean up. And I'm just going to mix this around until it gets a little bit frothy. You want it kind of foamy, but not too foamy. Again, it's going to sit overnight, so it's not going to have a lot of, and it's going to soak into the bread. So there's not going to be a whole lot of fluffiness that goes into it with some of the other things that you do when you do baked eggs or egg mixture. And I feel like that's pretty good there. And again, while you're whipping this around, if you wanted to throw some extra seasoning in there, whatever, you know, your family happens to like or you find appealing. Dill is a really good mix in with egg. You know, that it just really depends on your family and what you like. If you wanted something spicy, you could throw a little cumin in there. Everybody's taste is different. And experiment. You can, you know, try it. If you don't like it, you'd say, oh, well, I want to do that again, right? So now that we have our egg mixture, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pour it right over top of my bread. And I'm just going to sort of spread it out evenly over top of each slice of bread. And kind of mush that down a little bit. That's the other reason you kind of want to mush it down a little bit so that it really has a chance to get onto that bread. I'm just going to go back over it and get it good and coated. And of course the egg mixture will also, you know, puddle up in the bottom of the pan, and we know that. We're expecting that. That's okay. And once we get it all coated, I'm just going to pour that in there. And I'm going to put just a little bit of pepper over top of this, just for some extra flavor. Just because, you know, yum! Because it's eggs and eggs need pepper. So I'm just going to sprinkle that with a little bit of pepper. Of course, now that I said dill, I'm really thinking, yeah, well, that dill would be good in here. But perhaps another time. So once you have that on, then we're going to put another layer of cheese on it. We're going to put some more mozzarella cheese on there. Sadly, this mozzarella cheese is frozen because when I went to grab my whisk, I dropped my bag of cheese on the floor and kind of spilt it, so I had to get some frozen cheese. And that won't matter a whole lot because it's going to sit overnight anyway. But the reason that I'm putting another layer of mozzarella cheese on here is, again, that creaminess, that meltiness. So I'm going to put some mozzarella cheese on here, and then I'm going to put my cheddar cheese on top. Your cheddar cheese, if you decide that you're going to use cheddar cheese on top, will not only give it a good flavor, but it'll give it kind of a crispy little top to it, which is always good. But the mozzarella, of course, will maintain kind of that creaminess, that stringiness that's just, yummy, gooey. You want a mix of the both. You want that flavor, you want a little crispy, you want a little, it's the best of all worlds, right? Oh my goodness, this cheese is very cold. Okay, so I've got my mozzarella cheese on there, and I'm gonna sprinkle my cheddar cheese on here. And again, there'll be a recipe in the comment section, but you do you can follow the recipe, but hey, you can kind of say, hey, I want more cheese, or boy, that's a lot of cheese, I don't know that I want that much cheese. Do whatever your family likes, what you like, right? What mom likes if you're making this for Mother's Day. So there we go. We've got our, if you can see that, we've got our bread, it's covered with our cheese, we've got our lovely little filling in there, and our egg mixture is sitting down there. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to cover this in foil. I will also tell you, take a second to take your foil and give it a shot of cooking spray so that it doesn't stick. Not that it will at this point, but it just makes it easier so that nothing sticks. But you're going to cover that nice and tight with some foil and pop it in the refrigerator. And it's going to sit overnight. Can you bake it immediately? Yes, but it's not as good. And the reason that you want it to sit overnight, or overnight and then some, it can sit up to about 24 hours. But while it sits, that extra egg mixture is getting absorbed into that bread, which just really makes it yummy and delicious. So you want it to sit overnight to get the full flavor of it. So we're going to cover this with foil, and we'll put it in the refrigerator overnight, and in the morning we'll bring it out. We'll let it sit on the counter for a minute and then pop it in the oven. And before I pop it in the oven, I will put probably a little more cheese on it, and I'll put some chives on top of it because I love chives. But right now we're just going to cover it. We're going to put it in the oven, or we're going to put it in the refrigerator rather, and let it sit overnight and then put it in the oven. So wrap it up, put it in the fridge, and I will see you in the morning. And if you're looking for something simple and fancy to go with your Mother's Day brunch, you can slice up an apple, take your apple core, push down almost all the way to the bottom, but not completely, so that your apple stays attached. We're going to hide the center little core. I took a knife and cut about 3/4 of the core off, left the bottom so that it sticks just a little bit. And after you put your Strata in the refrigerator for the night, take a can of sweetened condensed milk, put it in a crock pot, enough water to cover it, and put it on low overnight, and in the morning you'll have this lovely caramel butter which sits very nicely right in the center of that apple, ready for dipping. Yum. You can even sprinkle a little crushed walnut or crushed pecans over top of them. Remember, toast them first. Again, if you haven't done the sweetened condensed milk thing before, you know I'm a big fan of it. Quick and easy caramel, yummy, yummy, delicious, and of course it ends up being pretty. If you're making more than one, maybe you're hosting a brunch for a lot of folks, to keep your apple from browning, take a little bit of lemon juice and either put it in a bottle and spritz it, or put your apple slice in a Ziploc bag and kind of sprinkle it over top of it, and that will help it from browning. So it's best to let your Strata sit in the refrigerator for about 12 hours. It can sit in the refrigerator for 24 to about 36 hours before putting it in the oven. When you take it out, let your dish sit for about 15 minutes to let it come to room temperature. If you have a Pyrex, you're probably safe to go ahead and put it in the oven, but I always like to err on the side of caution. Go ahead and put your Strata into the oven and then turn the oven on. That way your dish can kind of slowly come up to temperature with the oven. You're going to bake it at 375 for about an hour. You're going to want to keep an eye on it until all the liquid is kind of absorbed and it's nice and toasty. Our Strata is now out of the oven, and we're just going to let it cool before we go ahead and cut it and serve it up. So your Strata will cook in the oven for about an hour. You'll want to make sure that all the liquid is baked out of it. before you take it out of the oven. Let it rest for about 15 to once it cools, you can kind of touch it and see whether or not it's hot enough to serve. And of course, you have this lovely, sweet and delicious little side dish to go with it. So you're ready to serve brunch to mom, or maybe a nice, quick weekday meal. Because again, you can make it ahead. But I think it's excellent for Mother's Day. Make your mom a Mother's Day brunch. If you're a mom out there, happy Mother's Day to you. I hope you enjoyed the day. And if you have a mom, make sure you call her, because you don't know when she'll be gone, and then you'll be sad. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and share so that your friends can become our friends, because we always want more friends. And a happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there, especially to my mom, Colleen. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will see you real soon.